You finally said no to something you didn't want to do. You stopped replying to the person who keeps hurting you. You took a night off instead of proving how productive you can be. You put your phone down instead of checking one more time. You did the thing everyone says is healthy. And somehow you don't feel free. You feel guilty, restless, anxious, maybe selfish. Maybe you even want to undo the decision just to make the discomfort stop. So here's the strange question. If the choice was good for you, why does it feel so wrong? If you like psychology that helps you understand what's happening beneath your reactions, subscribe. That's exactly what we explore here. One reason this experience is so confusing is that we often treat feelings like verdicts. I feel guilty, so I must have done something selfish. I feel anxious, so I must have made the wrong decision. I miss them, so maybe leaving was a mistake. I feel uncomfortable resting, so I should probably get back to work. The feeling is real. But the conclusion attached to it isn't automatically true. Sometimes an emotion is describing the present. And sometimes it's carrying instructions written much earlier. Think about how many rules a person can learn without anyone ever saying them out loud. Keep everyone happy and you'll be safe. Be useful and you'll be valuable. Avoid conflict and people won't leave. Explain yourself enough and nobody can misunderstand you. Stay productive and you'll deserve to rest. Get reassurance and uncertainty will disappear. You may not consciously believe these things today. But if you've repeated them for years, they can start to feel less like beliefs and more like the rules of reality. Imagine carrying an invisible rulebook you never remember agreeing to. Then one day you set a boundary. Your adult mind says, this is reasonable. But the old rulebook says, good people don't disappoint anyone. And guilt appears. You stop chasing someone who gives you just enough attention to keep you hoping. Your mind says, this relationship is exhausting me. But the old rulebook says, if connection feels uncertain, try harder. And anxiety appears. This is why growth can sometimes feel wrong. You're not only changing a behavior. You may be violating a rule your emotional system once associated with safety. And those rules can become part of your identity. Maybe you've always been the reliable one. The person who answers, helps, fixes, and shows up. Then you become less available and suddenly self-respect feels suspiciously like selfishness. Maybe you're the peacemaker. You learn to keep the room calm, swallow irritation, and understand everybody else's side. Then you finally confront someone and honesty feels cruel. Maybe you're the strong one. Asking for help feels like failure. Maybe you're the productive one. Sitting still makes you feel worthless. Maybe you're the understanding one, the person who always gives one more chance. Walking away makes you wonder if you've become cold. But notice what's happening. The new behavior isn't only asking, what should I do? It's asking, who am I allowed to be? And that can create a strange kind of grief. You may not be grieving the unhealthy pattern itself. You may be grieving the version of yourself who knew how to survive through it. That version of you had a map. Maybe it wasn't a good map. Maybe it kept leading you back to painful places. But you knew the roads. The healthier version of you is walking somewhere less familiar. And unfamiliarity can feel like uncertainty before it ever feels like freedom. This is also the moment when old patterns become incredibly persuasive. You set the boundary and guilt arrives. You end the relationship and loneliness arrives. You put the phone away and your mind imagines everything you might be missing. You finally rest and a voice tells you you're falling behind. The temptation is to return to the old behavior, not necessarily because it was better, but because returning offers immediate relief. Send the apology. Check the message. Say yes. Open the laptop. Chase the reassurance. For a moment, the tension drops. And your brain learns something. When discomfort appears, go backward. The old pattern often becomes most persuasive right after you stop obeying it. That's why the period between choosing differently and feeling comfortable with that choice matters so much. And if this sounds familiar, tell me in the comments what healthy choice has felt strangely uncomfortable for you. And if this is helping you see that discomfort differently, leave a like. It helps more people find these conversations. Now, this doesn't mean every uncomfortable decision is secretly good for you. Sometimes anxiety is warning you about a genuine problem. Sometimes guilt is telling you that you acted against your values. Sometimes a decision really does need to be reconsidered. The goal isn't to worship discomfort. It's to stop treating discomfort as an automatic stop sign. Instead of asking only, does this feel comfortable? Try asking, does this choice move me toward the person and the life I actually want to build? Those are very different questions. The familiar choice can feel better tonight and keep hurting you for another year. The unfamiliar choice can feel terrible tonight and slowly create a life where you no longer have to abandon yourself to feel safe. Immediate relief and long-term alignment are not always the same thing. So when a healthy choice suddenly feels wrong, try a simple reality check. First, what old rule am I breaking? Maybe it's, I must keep everyone happy. I can't disappoint people. I have to earn rest. My needs require an explanation. Don't argue with the rule yet. Just identify it. Second, what feeling am I trying to escape right now? Guilt? Loneliness? Uncertainty? Rejection? Loss of control? Sometimes the urge to reverse a decision isn't really about the decision. It's about wanting immediate relief from the emotion that followed it. And third, what would going back teach me? If you apologize for a reasonable boundary just to remove guilt, what does that teach you about guilt? If you check your phone every time anxiety rises, what does that teach you about anxiety? If you chase someone every time loneliness appears, what does that teach you about being alone? You may accidentally teach yourself that uncomfortable feelings must be obeyed. But feelings can be experienced without being given authority. You can feel guilty and still keep a fair boundary. You can miss someone and still know the relationship was unhealthy. You can feel anxious and still leave the phone alone. You can feel unproductive and still rest. That doesn't make the emotion fake. It means the emotion gets a voice, not the final vote. And this is where the new pattern starts becoming real. Not through one dramatic transformation, but through evidence. You say no and the world continues. Someone is disappointed, and you discover that their disappointment is survivable. You rest and your worth doesn't disappear. You stop chasing and the anxiety rises, peaks, and eventually changes. You express a need and discover that healthy people can tolerate you having one. You spend an evening alone and realize that loneliness can be uncomfortable without being an emergency. Each experience gives your mind a new piece of information. This is unfamiliar, but I can stay here. Then you do it again. Not perfectly. Not without emotion. Just often enough that the unfamiliar starts becoming recognizable. Eventually, the boundary that once produced guilt can feel normal. Rest can stop feeling like something you have to earn. Silence can stop feeling like rejection. Someone else's disappointment can stop feeling like proof that you've done something wrong. And maybe that's one of the quieter forms of personal growth. Your life changes first and your feelings need time to catch up. So think about where we started. The boundary you finally set. The message you didn't answer. The night you allowed yourself to rest. The explanation you decided you didn't know. The person you stopped chasing. Maybe the guilt doesn't mean the boundary was wrong. Maybe missing them doesn't mean returning is right. Maybe anxiety doesn't mean you made a mistake. Maybe you're simply experiencing what it feels like when an old pattern no longer gets to make every decision. The next time doing something healthy feels strangely wrong, don't immediately ask, how do I make this feeling disappear? Ask something more useful. Is this actually wrong? Or is it just new? Because what feels unfamiliar today can eventually become the way you naturally live. If there's one healthy behavior you're trying to make feel normal, tell me what it is in the comments. And if this video helped you understand your discomfort differently, leave a like. And if you want to go one step deeper, watch the video appearing on your screen now. We'll explore another psychological pattern that can quietly keep you stuck, even when you know better. Click it and I'll see you there.